This is the Sick'em Podcast. The Sick'em Podcast is a production of Baylor Athletics. Now, here are your hosts, Brooke Bednarz and the voice of the Bears, John Morris.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Sick'em Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. We're glad you're with us, John Morris, Brooke Bednarz, and we're going to reminisce a little bit this week, and this will be a lot of fun. This year, 2022, is the 10-year anniversary of really one of the great teams, one of the great seasons in Baylor baseball history, 2012. What a great year that was. The year of Feed the Beaver, the year of a record-winning streak, the year of a Big 12 championship. So we are going to reminisce a little bit, Brooke, about that 10 years later with a big reunion this weekend at Baylor Ballpark.
Yes, I was going to say, I think that anytime, the last time I think of like a reunion, everyone loves family reunions. Everyone loved the Friends TV show reunion. And of course, everyone's going to love this 2012 Baylor Baseball reunion at Baylor Ballpark this weekend. So for me personally, I wasn't here at Baylor in 2012, so it's been fun for me to get to learn and hear all about feeding the beaver and things like that, and to read up on this team. But I'm excited to be a part of the reminiscing here today. Well,
it's going to be a lot of fun. It really is. Let me welcome in our guests that will reminisce a bit with us. Josh Ludy is with us. Big 12 Player of the Year in 2012, led the league in home runs and RBIs, I think third in hitting that year. Josh, welcome to you. We appreciate you being on with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it. Hoot Johnigan is with us. Hoot was an assistant coach on that team, now an assistant with Baylor softball. Hoot, I know you've got a lot of stories from your time, especially that 2012 season.
Absolutely, and I probably forgot more than I can remember, but there's plenty of them, and hopefully these guys will josh my memory a little bit about some other ones that come up, and Josh, there may be some I may not want to hear about, so just choose wisely, if you know what I mean.
Choose wisely. And we are very pleased to have with us the head coach of that team for 21 seasons. Baylor Baseball's head coach, Steve Smith, is with us. And Steve, welcome. We're glad to have you on with us.
Thanks, John and Brooke. Nice to meet you. And on behalf of the whole team, I just want to thank everybody for taking the opportunity to recognize these guys. It was a real special group of guys. Obviously, was an incredible year. One that will be hard for anybody to duplicate. You guys may be following Tennessee this year a little bit in college baseball, and the kind of stuff they're doing in the SEC is sort of similar, but it'll be really hard to duplicate 18 in a row in the league and 24 overall. That's just those kinds of things just don't happen very often.
Well, I know for myself, when I was reading through, it just seemed like there was highlight after highlight after highlight when it came down to the series, to how the season kind of, you guys got to host a regional here and so on and so forth. But I guess, Josh, I'll start with you. If you had to pick a memory of that to kind of, or a best story, how would you kick that off as we start this reminiscing of 2012?
I'd probably say that A&M series, the last Sunday game would have been the 18th straight in the conference, 24th overall. That first inning, I had a 14-pitch AB against Pineda, and we took the lead there, and then I think we got down at some point in that game and ended up rallying back too, and came in. I think Garner closed all three games that series for us, and ended up sweeping them to vault us to number 1 or 2 in the country at that point. That was probably the biggest one for me.
Yeah, let's don't gloss over that 14 pitch at bat. Yeah. First inning, how about that? Fouled off 10 pitches, I think 14 pitch at bat that ended with a 2-run homer also.
Yeah, I got Muncie got the third on the ball he hit. I don't know if something happened here, it was triple, whatever it was. Just looking to try and drive something to the outfield and get on the board right away. And I got a 3-0 and hacked every straight pitch pretty much, and ended up working out in our favor.
Golly. Remember the crowds that weekend? I mean, y'all had great crowds all season, but especially that A&M series. And it was a split series. Friday was in College Station. Mm-hmm. Saturday and Sunday were in Waco. And close to 11,000 fans here for 2 games, Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, the crowd was awesome, and they definitely on that right before that 14th pitch, it was kind of crazy how much louder it got. Just every pitch, seemed like it got louder and louder, and then right before the last one there, it was just kind of erupting, and as soon as I hit it, everybody went kind of crazy, which was awesome to see.
Hoot, the Saturday game, a 1-0 game, 5,911 fans at Baylor Ballpark. That was a memorable weekend.
Largest crowd
Absolutely.
in ballpark history. We might want to, little asterisk there.
Absolutely. Those crowds were unbelievable. And the guys fed off of that. That's what was good. So it was incredible. And, Ludy's AB there sticks out to me too. I've got that recorded. I use that example to this day, even with the softball girls that I have, as far as just grinding out at bats. But I just remember I watch it and I get chills. I get chills when we talk about it right now. I can remember exactly where I was at. Muncie was on third base. I'm saying, just get him in. And, about pitch 8 or 9, he kept fouling off. And then the crowd started getting into it with every foul ball. And Tom and Lark were on the radio, and they kept, he's just, and the crowd's clapping by the time the 14th pitch comes in. And then when he hits it, the place just goes crazy. And, it's just a feeling that's hard to describe. And you felt like, wow, this is going to happen here early in a ball game. I think we got this one, and so, he kind of set the tone, and if you're asking for, there's so many memories in that year, but I think back to K-State, and Ludy's in there with that one, man. He led the league in home runs. I think half of them were on that weekend. I don't know how many he had exactly, but I think it was game 2. We were down by 5, and you sit there in the middle, you think, okay, maybe this thing's not meant to be to continue. And man, the guys just persevered and wouldn't give up. And I think he had 3 home runs in that game. We wound up winning 11-10 or something like that. And that's just one of the many games. And every one of them, there was somebody else that stepped up. And but that's another one that stuck out, to me. And and Ludy was incredible that year and just had an unbelievable year.
Steve, how about you? What stands out? Anything top of mind from that season as a whole?
Well, I mean, Josh's home run might be one of the single greatest at bats that any of us ever saw. But I got to tell you, the 24 game thing started. We lost the game at UT Arlington, and I got thrown out of the game late. Matter of fact, somebody fouled a ball off their foot, I think, and so there was sort of a break in the action. And whoever was sitting next to me on the bucket, I just looked at him and I said, "I'll meet you guys on the bus." And I got up and I went out to the home plate umpire. They're just standing there while the trainers are looking at whoever fouled the ball off his foot. But I had watched this enough, the various strike zones. And so I went out there to him and I started the conversation by telling him he was going to have to throw me out of the game. And then I gave him good reason to do it. And so I go to the bus. We wind up losing the game. And as I remember, we kind of butchered a ground ball in the middle of the field, a double play ball. So when we got back, we drove back, and no conversation really after the game or on the bus. But when we got back, I stood up and I said, I'll meet you in the locker room. And we went in the locker room, and some very candid comments, as just no yelling. It wasn't. Now, I got to tell you this was when Ryan was a freshman. And I found out later that he called home. He called his mom after this meeting. And the way he described the meeting to his mom was, "Mom, Dad just yelled at us for 30 minutes. And I thought, I never raised my voice, but I went around the room and I called some guys out, and we started a 24 game winning streak.
Yeah.
Now I'm not taking credit for it. I wish teams would always respond like that, but more times than not, they don't. And the other thing I remember how the streak ended. Okay. We played UT San Antonio on a Tuesday, and I left Joey Haynesfurther in Waco because he wasn't going to pitch. He wasn't going to play. It was getting a little bit deep in the season. I didn't want guys on the bus if they weren't going to play. I didn't want them, I knew they had classes. They had things they could be doing. But I'm telling you, the moment the game started, I looked around and I said, uh-oh, we don't have him. Because he was the guy in the dugout that stirred the pot. And that's a polite way of saying it. I mean, he was that guy. And so immediately when the game started, I realized the dugout was different. And I realized I had left the wrong guy home. And, we wound up, it was a close game. I'm trying to remember you can probably remember who we started in that game.
Brad Kuntz.
Did Kuntz start in that game? I thought it was seemed like to me it was a younger guy, right hand. I can't remember, but anyway, you might be right. But we got down 3 or so pretty early, and then we made a game of it. But the thing I remember is just Haynesfurther not being there, and I thought, dang, if I'd have brought Haynesfurther, we'd have won 25 in a row. So those are just a couple things. There's a lot of things I remember about that season. Not all of them are pleasant. None of us felt good when it was over. And even 10 years later, there's decisions I made in that game that are pretty hard for me to live with. Because the guys, that was a team that was player led. It was a player led team. There's teams that are coach fed, and there's teams that are player led, and that team was player led. I just we sat back and just kind of watched, and should have done that a little bit more at the end. But it wasn't a bunch of superstars. Muncy's the highest draft guy we had on the whole team. He's a 5th rounder. Our pitching staff set records. I think that team ERA that year was the low. I know it was the lowest in the 21 years I was there, and I think it went back way before that. And the highest draft kid on that thing was, I think, Turley, and he was 17, 18th round guy. So it wasn't like it was a bunch of just future big leaguers. It was a bunch of solid guys that just, and Josh having the year he had and the leader he was, and we could go around the field at the quality people that were out there. And that's what I remember. And that's what makes it really kind of special, is that it just was, it was just a group of guys that bought into the mental game. They bought into consistency. And, I remember saying about them at the time, they were really boring to watch because they did things right. They just did them well every day, and it was sort of boring to watch. But, that's what good teams look like.
Wow. All right, hang on. Josh, I'd always heard that was a players-only meeting after that UTA game.
That's what I was going to ask.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But apparently not, huh?
Oh, no.
Okay.
That was definitely, everybody was in there, and I was definitely one of the few players that Coach had a few words for. So that was an interesting day.
Words of encouragement. Yes.
Well, what about when you left that meeting? How did this come to be? And tell me about the
each
beaver.
other for a little bit after the fact too. What's that?
Tell me about the beaver.
The beaver. It was short. I think it was the next day.
So it was around the same time as this meeting.
Yeah, it was literally like the next day or two.
Okay.
We were walking in the parking lot and found this beaver. And at some point had this beaver on a leash, and we're taking it for walks and everything else. And then somebody hit a home run like the next Wednesday game or whatever it was. I think it was Muncy, and Mahalik jumped up and yelled, "Feed that beaver," and it just kind of started from there. Grew into the legend.
Dude, that's right up your alley, right? Something like that catches on.
Hey, I can remember being on the field helping get the field ready after a Tuesday game or the Wednesday game, whenever it was. And Joey Hainsford, they're coming back in down the right field line by the berm, said, "Hey, coach, come here. You got to see this. There's that beaver out here." And I said, "What are you talking about?" Sure enough, you go out there and the beaver's up there eating those acorns underneath those oak trees out in the parking lot. And I have no idea what the guys did. There's rumors, and Ludi can tell you, that he was put on a leash and walked around the parking lot. So I didn't see any of that, but I just know this was one ginormous beaver, and he's out there in the parking lot eating a bunch of acorns. And somebody did yell that. I mean, they yelled, "Feed the beaver," and we hit a home run, and it just kind of stuck, and it just kind of went out of control. And by the end of the year, we had one of our fans dressed up as a beaver for the regional. And he had to be burning up in that regional because it was hot. But everybody had the fever, that was for sure. It was really interesting.
The beaver fever.
Beaver fever.
I would love to hear how you get a leash on a beaver.
Yeah.
That's got to be quite the story.
How about the timing? So the timing of finding the beaver, making a big deal out of that right at the start of the winning streak. Josh, I mean, that's amazing. You really couldn't ask for anything better, for a team, team bonding, whatever you want to call it. But all of that happened right at the same time.
Yeah, that was kind of our rally squirrel at that point.
Yeah.
Like they had with here, was it St. Louis or Anaheim, wherever that was. It was kind of one of those things for us. And, once it took off, it was like, it doesn't matter. We got the beaver.
And again, it was one of those things too that, we tried to carry that into the next year, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those things that happen. You go with it, and we did, and one thing led to another. There's T-shirts, there's posters like you have in your office, and people still have them to this day. I got a text from Coach Moore this morning. He sent me a picture with his two kids by a Feed the Beaver sign at the Baylor Ballpark when they were little kids, Ty and JC, and so they had the fever. So it was everywhere.
Wow.
The beaver made our ring.
That's right.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
right.
The beaver is on the
Right.
championship ring.
Yep.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
As he should be.
Yeah.
As he
Right.
should be.
Made famous.
Steve, as the head coach, when you got something like that everybody can rally around and it's a fun thing, I mean, you had to love that, didn't you?
Yeah, it was, and the fans they got into it. And so anytime you can, create an atmosphere like that, and have something, that's pretty cool. I mean, the beaver was pretty cool. I mean, people started watching out for the beaver, and I think there was a time or two it made its way across University Parks on the campus, and it was as I recall, a really large beaver, and I think Hainsfurther was probably the perfect person to try to tame the beaver and get it on a leash. Only Joey would think of something like that. You can't make that kind of stuff up. And, it was just a really cool thing to really, the year would have been a great year without the beaver, but you throw that in there and it becomes something that there's no telling what the stories will be, 10 or 20 more years from now. I mean,
Right.
The beaver probably will have taken an at bat by the time, it gets done.
Right.
It'll keep getting better. Yeah.
You had a 14 pitch at bat and hit a home run.
Yeah.
The beaver did that.
Right.
Well done,
Ludi,
Josh
it was the
Ludi.
beaver.
I'd
Yeah.
actually rubbed the pet or the toy beaver we had sitting on the dugout rail on the bat before that AB. So
Oh, yeah. That's great.
I did that every at bat. We had that thing there.
So on the field, Josh, you start. What was it about this team that made you guys so good, played so well together, and played at such a high level?
Man, I think it was just everybody had each other's backs. I think about too that first game at A&M at their place. I came up late in the game. They bring in a sidearm righty with runners on, chance to score. I ended up striking out against that dude, and I think Vic was following me. Vic comes up with 2 outs in that situation. Boom, gets a big hit, drives in the runs. Next guy was always there to pick one of us up when one didn't get the job done. And that was the biggest thing for me is no matter where we were at in the lineup, somebody was always there to pick you up.
What was it? What do you remember about the lineup and how everybody contributed?
Well, it was we didn't have to rely on one guy. It was just a bunch of average Joes, if you will. And these guys got out there and they played together well. And it was somebody different every game. The pitching was solid, the defense was solid, and somebody else, we found a way, to get the right hit at the right time, which is the name of the game. And it was really fun. One of the things I want to compliment Josh on is Josh caught every game that year. I mean, and pretty much every game anyway. I don't think there were too many that we didn't have much depth at the catching position at that time, and so but he went above and beyond to keep himself healthy. I remember after ball games watching him in there in the cold tub with the little rubber ducky, getting his that's a thermometer. We have a little duck that floats and tells you what the temperature of the water is, in case you're wondering. But that was an ice bath, and he's in there. But that helps him recover, so he could catch the second game, and then he could catch the third game, and I wouldn't have given you 2 cents to say he would have made it through the whole year, because he plays the game so hard. If a guy slides into home, he'd rather tackle him and put him in the dugout as compared to just tag him and look for the next runner. But that's just the way he was. So I thought there's going to be a play at the plate. He's going to have a collision, something. But he made it throughout the whole season, and not only did he make it throughout the whole season, he played at a championship level, and so. So that really sticks out. And I'm kind of, I was a catcher as well, but that kind of led the whole team. Everybody saw that behind there. Catcher's the only position where 8 other guys get to watch you play, and they did. And and the guys fed off of him, not only from a physical standpoint of catching and throwing and blocking and hitting, but the pitchers. He had a good rapport with the pitchers, calling games and stuff like that. So there's a lot of little stories like that, but Josh was definitely the ringleader as far as that goes, as far as keeping us together and getting us through that season.
Steve, I would love to hear from your perspective as head coach. You were 21 years here. What made this team special to where you guys were able to accomplish the things that you did?
Like I said, for me, they bought into. We spent a lot of time, not just that year, but our season in 2011 ended very, very painfully. And when we came together in the fall of 11, so headed into spring of 12, the first day they showed up in the fall of 2011, we had the scoreboard on at the ballpark, and it looked exactly like the scoreboard did at Rice at the end of 2011. And they had to stare at that thing. And, we worked really hard. Robbie Little was our strength guy at the time. And that was also a fall in which we redid the entire playing surface of the ballpark. That was the one thing that had never been done since the ballpark was built. So, I remember, this humongous pile of dirt right in the middle of the infield, because the whole field had been graded and reshot, and we're out there at 6 o'clock in the morning doing, tug of war on top of that hill, and they were competing. I remember watching Nate Orff and Max Muncy about go to blows at 6 o'clock in the morning because Orff didn't think Muncy was working hard enough. And I've thought about that many times, because those were the 2 guys that played the longest. Muncy's still playing and Orff's just finished, but they were about to fight. They just were, it was just a team. And, it was the mental side of it. We talked about routines a lot and being committed to routines, and that's why they were so boring. I mean, it was really boring to watch them, but it was the greatest kind of boring you could have. You talked about the A&M series. I remember you couldn't, we had a fireworks show. I think it was after the Saturday night game. And you couldn't have drawn that up any better. I mean, you know, you don't always win those fireworks games. And, you know, this one was a record crowd. And, you know, and then on Sunday, after we sweep them, you know, this is the last year A&M was going to be in the Big 12. They were headed off to the SEC. And I was getting those questions about, you know, are you going to continue to play them? And I remember my answer to that question that day. I thought, does nobody want to do this anymore? We had just swept them and in front of the biggest crowds we'd ever had. And people were suggesting we should never play them again. And I thought, hey, we just had a bunch of fun right here. I think we ought to do this again. You know, but that was an emotional time. That was a real emotional time for a lot of people, you know, with what was going on in the league. But it was certainly a good way for us to send them off.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't here in 2012, so I did my research, and part of my research, I discovered that both Steve and Hoot have degrees from A&M, and that's, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, where the two of you met as a student assistant and a graduate assistant. So was that how did that feel, having that massive of a big battle on the Brazos for the final time in the conference, and to have the biggest crowd in record history, and then to have those wins? Walk me through that a little bit.
Well, you know, both Smitty and I both are really close to Mark Johnson, Jim Lawler down there, who were the coaches at the time. Have the deepest respect for them. But, you know, when you get across the line, they're the same way. You know, it's kind of like Nolan Ryan said, hey, it could be my son up there, but when I'm on the mound, he's in the box, I want to get him out. And we want to win. And we've obviously had our share of losses against them earlier in the career. So yeah, it was just the whole thing was just great. The atmosphere, the crowd was there. There was a lot of Aggie fans here too. And, you know, my control. And when I would go back to the stadium, you know, if the crowd there would always get our guys out of their game, but it didn't that year. And that was fun. That was rewarding to see. And the best way to shut them up is to play and to beat them. And that's exactly what we did. And that's what you always try to instill as a coach. And our guys went out, and every time they would start to get something going, we cut it off and boom, here we go. Nope, not on our field, not today, not this year. And so, yeah, it was fun. I mean, again, we've still got the utmost respect for Mark Johnson and Jim Lawler that made us who we are today, and on all that kind of stuff. And we got some great times. I mean, I had some great times there. I got a lot of great stories there in Aggie land. And we were a part of arguably one of the best teams in college baseball in 1989. So we went a long way back, but it was good to have our own team, if you will, here at Baylor that did some of those same type of things and have a special season like that.
Yeah. I mean, by 2012, Coach Johnson was gone. And, you know, so and that was hard when, you know, I don't know if I say it's hard. I mean, it was for me, it was a privilege. You know, I remember, I think it was probably 96 who we played over there, and it was when Jeremy Dotson hit that home run, and that we came back from like 6 runs down, I think, in the 9th inning. And that was such a big win, I thought, at the time, but we were trying to get to where they were for so long, you know, with the program. You know, and 2005 was a magical year for us, which, by the way, John, we're going to need to do something for that 2005 team sometime as well. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're going to get their feelings hurt.
That's true.
But, you know, Coach Johnson was gone after 5. And I think at that point, I know it did for me, it got a little easier to play him. You know, I mean, you know, we weren't playing him anymore. We're playing Rob Childress. And, you know, so beating them was kind of was more enjoyable.
That's exactly right. I'd forgotten. My sometimers just kicked in. I'd forgot that.
Yeah.
I just remember playing him so much. It was always hard playing him when Johnson was there because, you know, I played for him, you know, and again, still wanted to win. He wanted to win. So yeah, I forgot Childress was there at the time. Yeah, it was even better.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But, that place, I mean, Hoots already said it. He played there. His wife Donna played basketball there. You know, I think I know Zach and Bryce have, I don't think they bleed maroon anymore. I think if you cut them open, they're green.
Yeah.
You know,
they don't even know where that place was. So
I saw the other day where they didn't give Hoot a degree from Baylor. So
how about that? Yes. Alumni by choice. Way to go.
Absolutely.
Put that
undergrad from A&M, master's from Mississippi State, and now I got another one from Baylor. So I guess you call me doctor now, right?
Yeah.
All right, Hoot. All right, I'll add that to the
Dr. J.
Dr. J it is.
Yeah.
You mentioned 2005, that team made it to Omaha. If there was ever a team that was destined to end up in Omaha, it was 2012, but you guys didn't get there. Let's touch on the Arkansas Super Regional. Josh, sorry to scratch that scab off, but man, you had them. You won the first game. You had the second game, but they came back and won, and then they won the decisive third game. How tough was it to see this great season end short of Omaha?
Yeah, it was pretty rough, especially later that summer I got to pro ball, and my roommate was the Arkansas shortstop who didn't avoid rubbing that in a few times.
Yeah,
old Tim Carver, but it was tough. But after we had the mishap on the second game, it wasn't like the year before. We still had another game to come out and play, and it was that third game was a heck of a game. I think it ended 1-0 in 10 innings or something like that.
Right.
I just remember my first AB in the third game, I flew out pretty deep, and then I got walked like 4 straight times after that. And it was a little bit of frustration, not getting really a chance to do anything in that game. But, Bremer threw his butt off that game for us. I don't know if he went 8 or 9, however many it was, but that was one of the better games that he'd come out and thrown. And, it was just wasn't meant to be, I guess.
Hoot, that was a tough way to have that great a season come to an end.
Yeah, it really was. And, you just thought it was a season of destiny for us to get there. I mean, if you back up to the regional before that, we lost game 1, if you remember, in that regional. We had to come back to the losers bracket. And I remember Austin Stone threw the game of his life to get us back in there and allow us to come back. And a lot of good things happened there for us to even get to the super regional. And so you're sitting there, how momentum builds, and you're just thinking, okay, this is meant to be. We win the first game. You're sailing along there in the second game, and it just didn't happen. And then we played our tails off again in game number 3. Incredible game, and Bremer stepped up again. Here's another guy that steps up, which has happened all year long. A different guy steps up and to make it happen to get that far, it just wasn't in the cards, like Josh said. Just wasn't meant to be. But still, can't take away the memories, can't take away the guys, and seeing, and I was listening to the podcast or Zoom call that Bryce Cherry had on that article with all those guys, and to see them grown up, see Josh has 2 kids now and successful great families, and that's what's rewarding as a coach, to see those guys move on. And there's got to be something during that season. Sure, it hurts, but there's something that they learned that's making them who the men they are today, and that's what's rewarding as a coach. And hopefully those guys are continuing. But it's great to see them have success. Not only on the baseball field, next month he continues, but off the field as well.
Who you and I need to talk more often.
All right, we don't want to end with the Super Regional. We're not going to end with that.
No.
Steve, you lead us off as we wrap things up. What are you most looking forward to, being back here this weekend, and the guys that will be here, and the stories that'll flow, and the reminiscing? What are you most looking forward to this weekend?
Seeing the players. I hope a lot of them are able to come back. That is easily what, the most important thing and what I'm looking forward to. It'll be an emotional time, on a whole lot of fronts. But to see those guys will be special. And I personally, am looking forward to maybe seeing some fans, seeing some of the people that, were not just a part of that year, but a part of a lot of years. And, I know the current club's, having a tough one, and, maybe this will be something that'll, we'll get a few extra bodies in the ballpark, and, maybe we can spark them, to do something these last 2 or 3 weekends to kind of right the ship a little bit and give them some momentum, going to the conference tournament. But seeing the players and seeing the fans, I think that's what I'm looking forward to.
That's great.
Maybe the Beaver fan still has his.
Maybe the gal come in the Beaver suit.
Yeah,
How about
that'd
that?
be great. This is our call to
Don,
action for that.
Ray Bold will probably do that. He's, I'm sure he's still got it.
What are you looking forward to most?
Oh, the same thing. I mean, just seeing the players and hopefully their families, and if they can come back and just watching them, reminisce. I remember the dog piles and all the years, and the most rewarding thing is sitting back and just watching, to see all the hard work that has gone into that, and to let them have success, because this game is cruel. Life's not fair either. I mean, and so you don't always have success. Hard work doesn't always pay off. It gets you only so far. You got to have some luck involved. There's a lot of things that go into it. And for these guys to have had success like they did, that's very rewarding. And so now that the next moving on, see them have success off the field. That's what I'm looking forward to, kind of catching up a little bit. Now with Facebook and different things, it's a little bit easier to find out what's going on in them, but to see them, shake their hand, give them a big hug, and meet their families if they can make it back and find out what's going on, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Josh, how about you?
I'm just really excited to get back. I haven't been back, honestly, since I was playing, I don't think 2014 or 15. And so it's a lot of things have changed since I've been back down there. And the last couple of years with the COVID rush and everything, I've been busier than ever with work, so I haven't caught up with a lot of guys. So I'm pretty excited to get back down and, get to see what guys are up to and everything.
Right. You may not recognize the place, Josh. Things have changed a little bit here on campus, so it'll be fun to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I might need a new map.
Yeah, exactly. You know where the ballpark is. It's in the same place. Right.
I can always find out.
Yeah. Well, you guys are great to do this. Thank you very much. It's fun to reminisce on really one of the great seasons in not just Baylor baseball, but Baylor athletics history. And that 2012 season is going to live forever. And this is a great opportunity, 10 years past, to get you guys together and back here. 49-17 was the final record. Feed the Beaver was a big part of that. Big 12 record, 24-game winning streak. 18-0 to start Big 12 conference play was amazing. So
ranked nationally number one for the first time in program history.
So congratulations on all of that. It'll be fun to reminisce, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. And hey, shout out to Chad Jackson and Steve Rodriguez for putting this on and spearheading this. And I know all you guys, what all y'all do too. Thank you for you guys. But to recognize these guys, and hopefully, like somebody said, maybe we can recognize 05 down the road too. But there's some good things that happen, and we appreciate all you've done to make it happen.
That's very good. Good point. Thanks to Chad. Thanks to Coach Rod and the current staff. And we appreciate Josh Ludy, Hoot Jonigan, and Steve Smith being with us. For Brooke Bednarz, I'm John Morris. That's this week's Sick'em Podcast.
You've been listening to the Sick'em Podcast. The Sick'em Podcast has been a production of Baylor Athletics.